A new medical study has found dramatic increases in infant mortality, cancer, and leukemia in the Iraqi city of Fallujah, which was bombarded by U.S. Marines in 2004. The rates of infant mortality and cancer exceed those reported by survivors of the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945.
According to the report, there's been a 4-fold increase in all cancers and a 12-fold increase in cancer in children under the age of 14. Infant mortality in Fallujah is more than 4 times higher than in neighboring Jordan, 8 times higher than in Kuwait. The report says the types of cancer are, quote, similar to the Hiroshima survivors who were exposed to ionizing radiation from the bomb and uranium and the fallout.
Patrick, I'd like to ask you about this whole other issue of the report by Chris Busby and some other epidemiologists about the situation in Fallujah and the enormous increases in leukemias and cancers in Fallujah after the U.S. Soldiers' attack on that city. Could you talk about that?
Sure. I think what's significant, very significant about this study is that it confirms lots of anecdotal evidence that there'd been a serious increase in cancers, in babies being born deformed, sometimes with grotesquely so, babies, baby girl born with 2 heads, people born without limbs. Then a whole range of cancers increased enormously. When I was in Fallujah, doctors would talk about this, but one could write about this, and one couldn't really prove it from anecdotal evidence. Now, this is a study, a scientific study, based on interviews with 4,800 people, which proves that this was in fact happening and is happening. And of course, it has taken place so much later than the siege of Fallujah, when it was heavily bombarded in 2004 by the U.S. military. Because previously, Fallujah is such a dangerous place to this day, difficult to carry out a survey, but it's been finally done, and the results are pretty extraordinary.
What were the various weapons that were used in the bombing of Fallujah in 2004?
Well, primarily it was sort of, artillery and bombing. Initially it was denied that white phosphorus had been used, but later this was confirmed. I think one shouldn't lose sight of the fact in this case that before one thinks about was depleted uranium used and other things, that just simply the use of large quantities of high explosives in a city filled with civilians and people packed into houses, often you find whole families living in one room, was in itself going to lead to very, very high civilian casualties. But that's not quite what we're talking about here. We're talking about the increase in cancers and so forth, and the suspicion that maybe depleted uranium, maybe some other weapon, which we don't know about. This is not my speculation, but of one of the professors who carried out the study, might have been employed in Fallujah, and that would be an explanation for results which parallel, in fact exceed the illnesses subsequently suffered by survivors of Hiroshima.